Sorry. I wonder how Joseph felt when he found himself outside of a manger. And I really kind of want to talk all around that. That if he ever had that question, Lord, are you here? Where am I at? How did I find myself here? This isn't how I pictured it, Lord. As we read the Bible, a person can barely read it without being filled with all kind of questions. I mean, how many times do you read through the Bible or read inside of a scripture and you just ask the question like, I wonder whatever happened. I wonder whatever resulted. I wonder what was the end story of everything that I just read about. And so what we find inside of the Bible is this question, at least I find it often, that I wonder. I wonder if Eve ever ate any more fruit. You know what I'm saying? Like, because she done messed it up one time. I wonder if Noah slept good in the rain. Like, I just wonder. I wonder if Jonah, after he was swallowed up by a fish, I wonder if he ever liked fish again. You know, like, I wonder these. I wonder if Jeremiah the prophet, I wonder if he ever had any friends. After Moses had this encounter with the burning bush, I wonder if this dude didn't avoid bushes for the rest of his life, you know, because I probably would have. I wonder if Jesus told jokes. I wonder if Peter ever tried to walk on water again, you know, like I wonder these things. I often wonder about the Apostle Paul. I wonder, you know, he didn't marry, but I wonder that if he would have asked, would a woman have married him, you know, like, or was there a reason, you know, like, I wonder these things. And so the Bible is full of snapshots of people encountering God, these God encounters, but it rarely records the end result. We rarely find out. And so what we're left with is we're left with wonder. If you would think about the woman who was caught in adultery when they were ready to stone her and had her back up against the wall, and when Jesus looks at these Pharisees and these Sadducees and these men, and when he looks at them and says, the person without sin, you be the first one to cast a stone, and all of a sudden they step back, you know, and she was caught and she was busted and she was an adulterer and she was a sinner and she did everything wrong, but then Jesus steps in and says, no. Have any of you sinned? What I wonder about her is I wonder when she got home, what did she say to her husband? You know, did she confront any of this? After the demonic man was delivered, you know, the man by which Jesus steps off the boat and he walks up to this man who's possessed, living in a cemetery, and approaches him and says, what's your name? And he says, my name's Legion. He has so many demons inside of him that he looks at him and says, we are many. My name is Legion. And he asks that, you know, if you're going to cast us out, let us go into the swine. So Jesus says, okay, for some reason, and the swine go, and they go and all drown themselves. I wonder what that guy did for a job after he was delivered. There's these things. What did he do? I wonder about Jairus' daughter. You know, when she was raised for the dead, I wonder if she ever found herself in a place in life by which she wished that she wasn't. When she was down and when she was out. There's all kind of questions, but there's nothing that really stirs up as many questions inside of me as does the birth of Christ. When we look at the Christmas story, we have the characters and they appear and disappear without a chance to ask them any questions. I mean, they're here and there. I wonder about the innkeeper who was too busy to take in God. I wonder if he ever learned who he turned away. You know, did he ever figure it out? I wonder about the wise men who followed the star. I wonder what it was like to worship a toddler. I wonder about the shepherds who were out in the field. I wonder when the angel appeared. I wonder if later on they ever found themselves whistling these angel tunes, you know, singing these songs. Joseph, man, I got all kind of questions about Joseph. He was daddy. Joseph, in not so many terms, is kind of like the grandfather of mankind. You know, if you look at it like that, because even though he didn't have nothing to do with him, he kind of raised him, you know, still all the same. But I got these questions for Joseph. Did you and Jesus ever arm wrestle? You know, like, did you ever win? You know, because, I mean, he's pretty strong, right? And so I wonder these, and I get this picture of Joseph on his knees praying. And I want to ask Joseph, did you ever come up for praying and see Jesus standing over you, staring, listening? You know, like, because he says he hears our prayers. And so I wonder these things. Whatever happened to Joseph? Where did he go? You find Joseph, and his role in Acts chapter 1 is so crucial that we expect to see him through the rest of the drama, through the rest of the New Testament. But with the exception of a short scene inside of Jerusalem with a 12-year-old Jesus, we don't see him anymore. And that's all that we find. The rest of his life is speculation. It's questions. But if I was going to ask Joseph any question, I would ask him about Bethlehem. I would ask him about the night at the stable. I want to know, what were you thinking when Jesus was being born? What was on your mind as your wife was giving birth to the Messiah? You know, I see Joseph, and you want to do all you can do. If you're a father and your wife's about to have a child, you want to get everything ready. I mean, because I've went through this 3 times, and just recently with my wife. And so you save the number to the doctor in your cell phone because you don't want to forget it, because you're not going to memorize it. You save the number to the hospital in your phone because you're supposed to call when you're on your way, and you're supposed to call the doctor. And I've came to find out that she ain't going to call. You know what I'm saying? Like in the back screaming or however it's going. And so you save all these numbers, and then you pack the bags beforehand. Before you ever leave, you're helping your wife pack your bags because you know she's going to forget your razor. Like, you know she is, and you're going to be there a couple of days. And so you're helping out with all of this. And so you have Joseph, and he's done all that he can do. He's heated the water. He's fluffed up the hay as much as he can fluff up the hay. You know what I'm saying? He's done all that he could do so Mary would have a place to lie. And all of a sudden, he made Mary as comfortable as she could be inside of a barn, and then he steps out. And I wonder, when he steps out, did he pray? What would Joseph's prayer sound like? What would it be like in that moment? Because I've been through that circumstance by which you're having a child, and so many of us here, and so I doubt that Joseph was silent. You know, like, I doubt that he was just not doing anything. If he's anything like me, the dude's pacing, you know what I'm saying? And he's nervous, and he's thinking, and he's talking, and he's praying. I always get giggly and get excited. Everybody experiences the birth of your children a little bit different. I get excited and giggle. Starla cries and yells at me. We got all kind of different things that go on. I remember every single time, the first birth of the child, I was just laughing, and I was excited. The second one, like, I remember I FaceTimed somebody. I was so excited, you know. Well, Starla was not happy about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's sitting there screaming. I'm FaceTiming her buddy and doing it. And this third one that we just had, like, I was taking pictures the whole time. And I got some really rad pictures because I'm so excited. But, you know, I wonder, Joseph, man, I see him animated if he's like me. I see him walking back and forth. I see him excited. I see him scared. And I wonder what's in his mind. I wonder what's he praying. What's he saying? Here's what I hear. If I'm him, I would be something like this. It would be like, hey, this isn't the way I planned it, God. Not at all. Not my child being born in a stable. My child being born in a barn. This isn't what I imagined. No, what I imagined is I imagined my family. I imagined my grandmothers. I imagined my neighbors being clustered outside the home. I imagined my friends being in the waiting room. I imagined them standing by our side. And I imagined as soon as the baby would come out and the infant would cry, that there would be a cheer amongst our family and amongst our friends, and excitement would fill the air because, you know, you sent an angel to me. And when you sent this angel to me, he spoke of a son being born. And this isn't what I pictured, because this isn't just anybody. This is Jesus we're talking about. So when I thought of Jesus being born with my wife, I imagined Jerusalem. I imagined a temple. I imagined priests being around. I imagined people being gathered around to watch. Man, a pageant perhaps, a parade, a banquet at least. I mean, come on. We're talking the Messiah here is being born. And so what did he imagine? And then all of a sudden he would stop and he would say, oh my, I did it again, didn't I, God? I did it again, Father. I don't mean to do that, God. I'm sorry. I keep on doing this. I just forget that he's not my son. He's yours. The child's yours, the plan is yours, the idea is yours. And forgive me for asking, God, but is this how he comes into the world? Is this how the Messiah is born? Any minute now, Mary's going to give birth to a son, but not just a child. This is the Messiah, not just an infant, but to God. This is who she's going to birth. And that's what the angel said would happen. And this is what Mary believes. And this is what, well, God, this is what I want to believe. This is really what I want to believe, but it's so crazy. Can't you understand where I'm at, God? Can't you understand my struggle? Because it seems so bizarre. God, I'm a carpenter. I measure twice, cut once. I pop lines. I look at the plans before I ever start building. I look for the plumb line. I'm trying to do everything right. I'm trying to make everything even. I'm trying to make it perfect. I'm a builder, God. This is who I am, but this time, I'm not the builder, am I? This time I'm just the tool. I'm a hammer in your grip. I'm a nail between your fingers. I'm the chisel in your hand. This project, it's your project, God. It's not mine. And so I wonder, did Joseph ever pray a prayer like that? You know, we think prayers are these wonderful verbiages, but honestly, there's this conversation between you and God. And so I wonder if he found himself outside of a stable and just lifting his questions and his frustrations and his excitement. And I wonder, did you ever ask God any of these questions? Did you ever pray such a prayer? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But you probably have, because I know I have. You stood where Joseph stood, caught between what God says and what makes sense. You've done what he's told you to do, only to wonder if, God, was it even you that was speaking to me in the first place? I mean, you stare into this blackened sky that's filled with doubt, and it's filled with questions, and you're trying to make sense of life, and you're trying to figure out circumstances, and you're trying to reason out why on earth these things are going on inside of my life, you know? And all of a sudden, you ask the questions that Joseph asked. You ask, God, am I even on the right road still? God, am I even heading the right direction? I mean, did you turn left and did I turn right? I mean, I'm trying to do everything the best that I can, God. I'm trying to be the father that I need to be. I mean, what kind of father am I anyways? My wife's in a barn. You know, and so we ask ourselves these questions. God, where am I? I wonder why God does things the way he does them. You ever found yourself there? Questions just racing and they're just running through your mind. I heard an author put it this way. What do you do when you follow a star, find a stable? You know, you have this idea of your life, of how things would work out. You have a plan in your head by which this is the way that the Lord wants me to do. Maybe the Lord spoke to you. Maybe you heard it deep down inside of your heart and you know, this is the call of my life. This is the purpose of my life. This is what the Lord wants me to do. And so you take the risk and you step out and you simply go and you're following a star. And you just know that when you find the star, it's going to lead you to a palace. It's going to lead you to a priest. It's going to lead you to people who are celebrating with banquets and parades and festivals. You just know that this is what it's going to turn out like. But all of a sudden, as you follow the star and as you endure the struggles and you go through the hard times and you find yourself frustrated and you go through failures, but every now and then you find yourself with a victory. And as you look at the star, the moment comes by which you stand under the star, and when you look at where you came, you're not seeing a palace, you see a stable. Do you hear me? I thought that when I went into college that it would lead to this job and it would lead to this career and my life would look like this and my family would happen here, but all of a sudden you got the job, but the job let you go, and all of a sudden you found the woman, but you ended up divorced. All of a sudden you had the child, but you lost the child, and all of a sudden you're following after a star, you're following after a purpose, you're going after a plan, but my life, it's not turning out the way that I thought it would. This isn't how I pictured it. This isn't where I thought I would be at this age. This isn't what I thought I would do, and I wasn't looking to still going through these struggles. Are you hearing me? I'm following a star, but God, I keep finding a stable. And so you would ask yourself, what do I do? God, what do I do when I follow a star and find a stable? Well, what did Joseph do? Let me urge you to do what Joseph did. He simply obeyed. That's it. He was faithful. He was steadfast. He was obedient to God. He was obedient when the sky was dark. He was obedient when the sky was bright. He didn't let confusion disrupt his obedience. He didn't know everything, but he simply did what he did know. He worked with what he did have. He made happen what he could make happen. He shut down his business. He packed up his family. He packed up his house. He went to a new country. Why? Because that's what God said to do. That's it. He just simply was obedient to what God said. But in all of our wonders and all of our questions, there's one question that you never need to ask. There's something that you never need to doubt. Do we matter to God? Does God care? Does God still love his children? Through the small face of an infant swaddled with clothes, born in a manger, God looks into the world and says, absolutely I do. Absolutely you still matter to me. Absolutely you still have a purpose. And that little child grew up to be a man. And when that man grew up, he said, I definitely am concerned with my creation. I want to show you how much I love you. He showed us signs. He showed us wonders. He showed us miracles. He established that he was God, that he was the Messiah, that he was Yahweh. But he says, because I love you so much, I have to die. My sin must replace your sin. My death must replace your sin. And so he goes up to a cross. He's born, and God says, yes, I care. And he takes it all the way to a cross, and God says, I still care, and my promises are forever, and I will forgive you, and I will redeem you. He dies on a cross only to be risen again 3 days later, just like he said he would. And so when you find yourself at a place in life that you're following a star, but you find a stable, what do? Stay faithful. You don't give up. You don't quit. You don't bow down. You stay faithful. There's something about God being born that just radically blows my mind. Somebody come and play the piano. I'm going to try to keep it short. But when God gave us his son, what he birthed into this world was living love. If you could look at it that way, literally, God birthed love to us. And love is the greatest of any force. It's the greatest of any power. It has the strength and the capacity and the ability to bring things back together, to make things happen, to make things new. If you could try to look up a definition in a picture and see what love was, you would see God standing there with His Son and His Holy Spirit, and you would see a living image of what love is. That's who Jesus is. But there's something so powerful about the love of Christ. An agape love, a love without reason, a love without rhyme, a love that does not give up, a love that does not quit, a love that does not stop. There's something so different about His love because this is the way love works. We try to make up a lot of different reasons. That's why we go different ways. But when love gets a hold of you, it never lets go. I like to say it this way, Jack. I like to say love binds. We believe that true love gives here. That when you truly read the Gospels and begin to understand them and know that they're the truth, that you understand how much God loves you. And that love gave everything. Yes. And so we are too. But what love does is it binds itself to you. And so if you can get this image with me of love binds, what I see is that love walks into the room and it grabs a man or a woman by the collar and it refuses to let go. It says, I don't care where you take me. I don't care what you do. I don't care where we end up. I don't care what happens. I've come and encountered you. You've had an encounter with love, and I will not loosen my grip. I will not let you slip too far. I will not give up on you. It binds itself to you. It molds itself to you. It makes itself into you. It's love, and it's binding with you. I can prove it. It's amazing how love changes things. If love can take an insignificant object and it can make something significant out of it. I think that's the gospel. That He takes somebody who is simply a sinner and He makes something marvelous out of them. But let's take something at your home. Let's say you go and you got a special gift that was given to you by your grandfather. You got a coffee cup. You got a car. You got a gun. You got something. You know what that was? It's simply something that was made inside of a manufacturer somewhere, probably China, and it made its way here, and you found yourself with it, and it's just an object. But over time, because of the person that gave it to you, and because of what it meant to you, all of a sudden an object that meant nothing is now sentimental. What happened? Love bound itself to it. Have you ever tried to go through your sheds and go through your drawers and go through your stuff and you just couldn't throw stuff away? I have. Ask my wife. We got a chest of junk that I don't understand why we got. But it's her stuff. And so creation is born. God sends His Son to bind Himself with all creation. He said, look, we tried this once and I don't like the way it's working. I want a better way. And so I'm going to send my Son into this world and He's going to bind Himself with you. But through the Holy Spirit, conceives Himself inside of Mary. And if you've ever had a child, it's interesting to me how that works. Because as soon as a baby comes out, the mother is infatuated with it. She is in love with it. It has literally already bound itself to her. But if you're like me, maybe I'm weird, I don't know. It took me a little while to get the bond that she already had. But it came. And it bound itself to her. And it bound itself to me. Creation comes. And then Jesus sends a son to be born into a stable. And then He says, if you will just see me, and if you'll just hear me, and if you'll just believe in me, it may take you a little while. You may do some things you shouldn't have done and go places you shouldn't have gone. But I'm going to tell you, if you give me a moment and if you'll listen to me, I will bind myself to you. And you know what I love about love is that it doesn't come alone. When love comes down, all of a sudden it brings with it two friends. And it says the first friend is it brings mercy. Love brings with it mercy. And what is mercy? Mercy says, I'm not going to give you what you deserve. You were a sinner. You have done this. You have screwed up. You have cheated on your wife. You have done this to your kids. You have lied at your job. You have gone through these emotions. You have gone through these things. And you do deserve to die. But that's not why I came. I came to bring mercy, to give you a chance. Jesus is all about that second chance. And not only does mercy come into the room with it, but it has another friend called grace. And grace says, not only will I not give you what you deserve, but I'm going to give you what you don't deserve. I'm going to give you an opportunity to be made right. I'm going to give you an opportunity for a new day. I'm going to give you an opportunity to be the mother you always wanted to be, the father you always wanted to be, the husband you always wanted to be, the worker you always wanted to be, the one who pursued. God, I know you messed up and I know you didn't do it right, but I have bound myself to you. And no matter where you take me, if you take me into hell, if you take me into sin, if you take me into problems, if you take me into disgust, I will go as low as you will go, but I promise you, you can't get so low that I can't pick you back up and take you to the person that I've made you to be. It's love, and it's bound to humanity. It's born in a manger. And it says, please, I'm calling for you. I always get the picture of the prodigal son. It's my favorite story. But it's this image of love that this young man thought he knew what he was supposed to do, thought he was old enough, thought he was man enough, thought he was wise enough, had money, had a little bit of position, had a little bit of popularity. Takes his money from his father, dismisses him, says, I want to have nothing to do with you. Walks out, goes to a foreign land and squanders his fortune with unrighteous living, just doing things that he shouldn't have done. But what do you find? You find himself coming to the realization that, hey man, what I thought my life was going to be, this isn't it. What I thought I was going to do, I'm not doing it. And I'm at a place that I don't like, and I'm too embarrassed. My pride's honestly built too much to just go back to daddy, to just go back to love. So I'm going to go work for some pigs. Even though I'm not supposed to touch them, I'm going to go feed them. And he finds himself at the lowest point of his life. And then he comes up with a plan, with a scheme, because he knows his daddy loves him. Why? Because love endures all things. Love always wins. He knows that love's still there waiting on him. That's why he thought I can go home. That's why he thought I can go back to daddy. But you know, he said, I'm not just going to go back to daddy as I was with the inheritance. He said, I'm just going to go back and let me be a servant. Just let me work. Let me make the wages. Let me live out there in servants' quarters. I'm not asking for anything more. So he makes up this plan and he heads back home. But when he gets home, he finds love waiting for him. And love, here's the way love works, is if love sees you walking towards it, it runs to you. And so the father, standing on the porch, takes off running because he says, I see my boy in the distance. And so he takes off running to his boy. He wraps his arms around him, around the filth, around the sin, around the disgust, around the shame, around everything he shouldn't have ever done, around him despising his name. He takes that, he wraps his arms around him and says, son, I forgive you. Son, come back home. And he says, daddy, no, just let me come back as a servant. He said, you forgot who I am. I am the Redeemer of all things. I'm the man who makes all things new. You are dead, but now you are alive. So we're not going through all of that. Take off your coat. Take off your shoes. Take a bath. Put a ring on your finger. I ain't going to shame your name. You might have shamed mine, but I ain't going to shame yours. That ain't how this thing's going to work. I'm going to redeem you. He wraps his arms around his son. He calls his servants. He says, kill the fatted calf, which is the best and the greatest. We're about to have us a banquet up in here because my boy who was lost is found and he's home. Do you see the picture of love? It's exactly what Jesus did. He's the Father who's standing, who's waiting, who's calling, who's pleading. He says, I'm going to go. I'm going to be born into the world that I created so that creation has a chance. Because that's how much I love them. That's how much I want them. That's how much they need me. And so we find ourselves here today. Maybe you're not off in sin, but maybe you're just following a star, but you found a stable and you're frustrated. Or maybe you are. Maybe you have slipped away. Maybe you're not following Christ at this point in your life. Maybe you've never followed him. But today's the day to make things right. Today, God extends love, grace, mercy, and let hope fill your life again. I believe that every single person, if you would allow the Holy Spirit, you will not walk out of these doors the same way you walked in. If you allow him to pour himself into you, if you allow him to forgive you, if you allow him to restore you, you got a chance. You're going to have to walk a tough road probably to get everything right in your life, but hey, you don't give up. You stay faithful. You keep walking. Everybody stand. So here's what I want to ask. And I ask it with everybody's head up and everybody looking around. I know some churches ask you to bow your head. I'm not into that. I believe if you're ready to make a commitment to Jesus, that you need to be proud enough of it to let everybody see.